right, ladies and gentlemen, so for our class today, we are going to take a look at Google Sheets as a way to evaluate our recorded data. So from here, we have completed our paper airplanes. You have tested each of your designs and your control design at least 3 times. You've recorded these results in some way, shape, or form. And now what we want to do is we want to evaluate these designs here. So we have all of this information. We need to now draw data, draw conclusions from this. So using Google Sheets, we're going to do so here today. So say your situation, what it is that you're dealing with, was distance. That was your experiment, was seeing which of your planes could travel the longest distance. So we have our airplanes, and we have our control is what we're going to start with. Then we have design 1. Some little tactic here to be able to know from Google Sheets is that if you take this blue square right here and you drag it down, we have 3 designs, so I'm going to drag it down 2 boxes. It will fill in the blanks for you. So we have our control, design 1, design 2, design 3. Airplanes, I'm going to make something either that is bold, or I can box that out. So these are all utilizing these techniques up at the top right here to be able to manipulate the cells, draw attention to a cell if you wanted to fill it in, highlight it, and organize it. All of this information here, so your fonts, your size, you can go to more, be able to change it so everything's in the center. That's very typical with a regular Google Doc. So everything there is going to be the same. Now, on the other side here, we want to have our trials. So we have trial 1, and we can do the same thing up at the top here with our trials, 2 and 3. So remember, 3 is the minimum number of trials that we're going to have for this situation. And we are going to be measuring our distance here. Say our distance was measured in feet, so I'm making sure to include my units for this situation. So now what you're going to do is just fill in your specific information. So for trial 1, for our control, say we got 19 feet, then say we got 19.25, and so forth and so on. So what you're going to do is just fill in this chart right here. All right, so now we have our table completed here. So we want to keep moving along. So I'm going to add another column here, which is average. So I want to take the average of each of these trials for each of these designs. So we want to do an equal sign, start typing the word average, and it's so smart it auto does it for you. But if we're not quite sure, we just click average. It's an open parentheses. Select these tabs here, close the parentheses, and hit enter. So now this gives us an average. We don't have to put do the math ourselves in our calculator. It's done right here for us. And then we have the option to do the same thing again, equals average. Again, it's so smart, it remembers what we just did, and enter. Or we could do our little shortcut, use the blue square here, drag down, and it knows to continue with the pattern that has formed. You can double click to check and see what it is that has been selected. I'm just going to bold this to keep it consistent. I'm going to group this one off right here, showing that it's separate. It's the average. It's not one of our trials that are being done up at the top here. So this is all being done just for simple organization purposes. And I can box these off. I can also box all of these designs here. That's really personal preference. Sometimes Miss Skirba or Miss Ung might make this a requirement. So again, just want to go through, if you've made a mistake, you can clear it all out, add certain boxes, so forth and so on. So now this here was all for feet. Now if we wanted to convert this to something else, so I just simply copied and pasted this document here, and I didn't want this to be in feet. Say I wanted it to be in meters. So now, if we wanted to be able to do it in meters, we would need to have the conversion. So what is it that would allow for 19 feet to be equal to meters? So what we could do here, I'm going to do an equal sign. I want to multiply this box, same box, times 0.3048. And that right there does the conversion for us. What I can do, drag them down, and I can check, are you taking the right box, which it is, and then I'll continue, I'll go across, and then down. And my average, same thing, will auto-populate. So same thing, I've just gone from feet to meters, all utilizing this information right here. If we now wanted to take this information and create a chart with it, we would want to insert a chart. And now there's no data here. We need to customize it. So I'm going to go back, close out of this here, and we want to go ahead and create a chart based on this information. So I've simply selected the information and it gives me suggested chart types. There's a whole bunch of different types here. So we have a line chart, area charts, column, bar, pie, scatter, map, and other. And it of course gives us these suggestions. So for this, a bar chart would be the ideal chart to use for this situation. Now it's up to you if you want them to go column or row. And Google Sheets here is so smart that it takes what we have as our axes and it identifies it for us. So you can see here trial 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if you needed to switch the rows or the columns for any reason, you wanted to show it by trial instead, notice it flipped trials to rows. But we want to make sure that we have our control, design 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we have our trials here, 1, 2, and 3. What we can do further is customize this chart. So we can change something like the background color, the border. We can change the titles. So paper, airplane. Notice it now changes. You can go through and of course change the font, the size, the color, all of that good stuff. You can go through and look at the axis, reverse the order of them. So now control you see is at the end, design 3 is first. Grid lines, you can include or not. Same thing with the vertical. You can have different scale factors coming into play. You can have your legend be changing location. So we can have it be moved to the bottom. Down here if you so choose. So this here is going to give you the ability to evaluate your designs. So this is just a little bit of a sneak preview of how you can utilize Google Sheets to go through and actually evaluate your designs. What you should do with this information is think back to your experiment. And you should think about what it is that you are evaluating. Use this as an ability to select your pros and cons between each of your designs, and use this to be able to allow for you to draw a conclusion in being able to effectively choose your most successful design, the one that most carries out your original task at hand. Thanks, everyone.